Hi friends. Today we are going to read one of my most favorite books for our theme this week of being kind. This book is so special to me. I don't read it very often because it actually makes me cry a little bit. So if you see a couple little tears in my eyes after I'm done reading it to you, then you will know why, because it's just an extra special book to me. And I think it's perfect this week for talking about being kind to other people. This book is called Wilfrid Gordon McDonald Partridge. It has a really long name. I'm going to say that a second time. Wilfrid Gordon McDonald Partridge. And it's about a boy whose first name is Wilfrid. And he lives next door to an old people's home, which is kind of like a nursing home. And his best friend is an old lady who lives there. She's lost her memory. So Wilfrid goes out to learn what a memory is and collects items to help her get her memories back. And I think that this book just shows how important our memories are to us and how special objects can also remind us of other memories. It reminds us that everyone deserves respect and kindness no matter their age, whether someone's very young like Wilfrid Gordon or whether someone is very old like Miss Nancy is her name. We'll learn that in a moment. So I'm excited to read this book. Before we start, we're going to look at some words. And I'll also comment on a couple things throughout this book as well, because one thing that's different about this book is that the author, Mem Fox, she has lots of amazing books. But she lives in Australia, and in Australia, they have some different sports. We're going to talk about one right now. And also they spell words a little bit differently sometimes, and they use English a little bit different way. And so if something sounds kind of funny and I recognize that in the book, then I'll comment on that. Like one of the words favorite is spelled different in Australia and in the United Kingdom than how we spell it here in the United States. And so there's some little differences like that that you might notice, and that's okay because she lives in a different place. And so we are reading a book that's written in her style of writing. So we have 3 words, and our first word is the word organ, which is always a hard word for me to say because I always want to say Oregon because that's where I grew up and like the state that I lived in, but it's just organ. And really an organ is a type of piano. So it's kind of like a smaller piano. Sometimes it's a bigger piano. It makes a little bit different sound, but it essentially works like a piano. So when I think of an organ, I think of a piano. I have an antique organ that my grandmother handed down to me from my great grandma. It lives at my brother's house because it's safer there. But, and it is very, very old, and it sounds similar to a piano and you play it the same way, but the instrument on the inside, the way that the sound comes out is different than a traditional piano. And that's how I know the difference. So organ is one. The next one is a sport, and maybe you've heard of it or not, and maybe you haven't, but this sport is called cricket. So we're not talking about the bug, which is also spelled the same way, but cricket is a sport, and it's I always think it's kind of like baseball. I have a friend who is from the United Kingdom, and he plays cricket, and he tried to explain all the rules to me, and there's a million rules, and it's super confusing, and sometimes you get 4 points, and sometimes you get 6 points, and it has to do with all these like things. And it's kind of, but for people who know how to play the game, I'm sure that it makes sense. And we are going to see it a little bit in here. It involves a ball and a paddle, and you come up and you hit the ball. So it's a little bit like baseball. So cricket. It's kind of fun. If you're interested in it, you can totally look it up online, and you can find all kinds of videos and all kinds of explanations of the rules. And the last word that we're going to look at today is the word precious. Precious. It doesn't really follow a lot of rules on how to spell this word and how to pronounce it. So I wanted to make sure we point it out. Precious. The C makes an SH sound in this word. And precious means something that is very, very special. In this case, we're talking about memories and things that belong to us that are precious, that are just almost, like you have to hold on to them, and that they're just the most important things that you have, especially memories of people that are no longer alive. Sometimes we would say that those are precious memories or things that belonged to people that were important to you in your life. All right. So here's our book, Wilfrid Gordon McDonald Partridge. The illustrations in this book are made by Julie Vivas. Kind of like watercolory looking. There was once a small boy called Wilfrid Gordon McDonald Partridge, and what's more, he wasn't very old either. His home was next door to an old people's home, and he knew all the people who lived there. So there's his house, and there he is hanging around. And then on the other side of the fence is kind of a nursing home. It's an old people's home, a nursing home. Sometimes we call them retirement homes, but a place where old people who really can't be alone, like maybe they need a little extra help to live in this place. He liked Mrs. Jordan, who played the organ. So here she is playing her organ. He listened to Mr. Hosking, who told him scary stories. He played with Mr. Tippett, who was crazy about cricket. And here's his cricket bat, the thing that he uses to whack the ball. He ran errands for Miss Mitchell, who walked with a wooden stick. And he admired Mr. Drysdale, who had a voice like a giant. He looks like a giant. Look how much bigger he is than everyone else. But his favorite, and I'm going to give you a close-up of the word favorite. Look right there. See how it has another letter in it? Favorite, with that extra O. So that's how we know that this is someone who is from Australia or England. But his favorite person of all was Miss Nancy Allison Delacourt Cooper, because she had 4 names just as he did. He called her Miss Nancy, and he told her all his secrets. One day, Wilfrid Gordon heard his mother and father talking about Miss Nancy. "Poor old thing," said his mother. "Why is she a poor old thing?" asked Wilfrid Gordon. "Because she's lost her memory," said his father. "It isn't surprising," said his mother. "After all, she is 96. "What's a memory?" asked Wilfrid Gordon. He was always asking questions. "It's something you remember," said his father. But Wilfrid Gordon wanted to know more, so he called on Mrs. Jordan, who played the organ. "What's a memory?" he asked. "Something warm, child. Something warm." She's drinking something warm, it looks like right there. He called on Mr. Hosking, who told him scary stories. "What's a memory?" he asked. "Something from long ago, me lad. Something from long ago." Kind of looks like he's remembering something from long ago. Thinking hard. He called on Mr. Tippett, who was crazy about cricket. "What's a memory?" he asked. "It's something that makes you cry, my boy. Something that makes you cry." He called on Miss Mitchell, who walked with a wooden stick. "What's a memory?" he asked. "Something that makes you laugh, my darling. Something that makes you laugh." I should note that we talk about how he's calling on all of these people. That just means that he goes to visit. That's another way of saying he goes to visit them. Did I get the last page? Sorry, I think I'm missing a page here. Yep, I am. There we go. He called on Mr. Drysdale, who had a voice like a giant. "What's a memory?" he asked. "Something as precious as gold, young man. Something as precious as gold." So Wilfrid Gordon went home again to look for memories from Miss Nancy, because she had lost her own. He looked for the shoebox of shells he had found long ago last summer and put them gently in a basket. for a kid or for someone who's not very old, last summer is a long time ago, right? And when you're older, sometimes a long time ago might mean a little bit length of time. But it all kind of depends on your own ideas. He found the puppet on strings, which always made everyone laugh. And he put that in the basket too. He remembered with sadness a medal which his grandfather had given him, and he placed it gently next to the shells. I don't know if you can see it. It's right there, next to the shells. It kind of blends in a little bit. Do you see the color part of the ribbon? And then there's the medal right there. These pages are kind of tricky to turn. Sorry about that, friends. Next, he found his football, which was as precious as gold. And last of all, on his way to Miss Nancy's, he went into the hen house and took a fresh, warm egg from under a hen. Now, I can't tell if that is a football, like what we think of as a football, or if that's a soccer ball, because in every other part of the world, soccer is called football. And then the football that we have here in America is a different sport. And so I'm thinking that that means that that is like a soccer ball, but we could be wrong. Then Wilfrid Gordon called on Miss Nancy and gave her each thing one by one. So there's his basket full of all the things that he collected for her. And let's see what she thinks. What a dear, strange child to bring me all these wonderful things, thought Miss Nancy. But then she started to remember. She held the warm egg and told Wilfrid Gordon about the tiny speckled blue eggs she had once found in a bird's nest in her aunt's garden. She put a shell to her ear and remembered going to the beach by tram long ago. That's kind of like a train. And how she had felt and how hot she had felt in her button-up boots. So looks what she did with her button-up boots. She got rid of those. And look at her face as she's in the sand. She touched the medal and talked sadly of the big brother she had loved, who had gone to the war and never returned. She smiled at the puppet on strings and remembered the one that she had shown to her sister and how she had laughed with a mouthful of porridge. Porridge is like oatmeal. So she's laughing with a face full of oatmeal. And see, there's her little sister down there. She bounced the football to Wilfrid Gordon and remembered the day she had met him and all the secrets they had told. And the two of them smiled and smiled because Miss Nancy's memory had been found again by a small boy who wasn't very old either. The end. Friends, I just love this story so much. This is actually the first time, I have to tell you, that I have been able to read this story out loud to people and not cry. This book is really special to me, and it always makes me cry a little bit, which I still feel like I want to cry a little bit right now, but I'm okay. And so I haven't shared it as much with students because I always get a little embarrassed when I cry, but it is a book that really means a lot, and I think it's a really, really amazing story about a really sweet little boy. So I am going to ask you today to do something that that I think is going to be really fun. In the book, there are 6 different things that he is told what a memory is when he asks what a memory is. And I want you to take some time and to think about a memory that you have that would fit each one of those memories. So one time he's told that a memory is something that's warm. So I want you to think of a time that might match that.